Welcome to the Raven Knoll Show. I'm your host, Raven C. Knoll, known as a soul physician. I'm a wife, mother, counselor, mindset plus life coach, and speaker, and this is episode number 22. Hey, and welcome back to the podcast. Y'all, I cannot believe that we only have a few more episodes in this series. Time has just flown by. This summer, it's almost over. It seems like it's just crazy. But if you've enjoyed season 3 so far, do me a favor and leave a review for the podcast. Your review matters. It matters to me. It matters to my team. And it just really helps us to be able to get traction going for the podcast and just gain more traction. So do me that favor and go ahead and leave a review. And as always, I'm just so thankful for the faithful and true RCM Pod Squad who show up every single week and tune in and listen. Thank you so much for just your commitment and your dedication to what we're doing here over at the RCN Co. All right, so today I am going to be interviewing Jourdan Guyton, who is a content strategist and coach who resides in the sunny side of California. I really had a great conversation with Jourdan. She's truly just very herself, very bubbly, very honest, and I loved it. And you can just tell that even when we were having the conversation, she really took time to think through her answers, and I can tell that she really wanted to give, authentic feedback and authentic answers to the conversation and the questions that I asked, and I just thought that was so lovely. So Jourdan has over 10 years of experience in the entertainment industry. In 2019, Jourdan sold her comedic web series that she co-created to a major network and jumped all the way into content creation. Fast forward to when the pandemic hit in 2020, and Jourdan was forced to pivot and create her own business from scratch. Named after her grandmother, Vera Jean Media specializes in content strategy and social media marketing for small business owners. Jourdan began teaching other female entrepreneurs her strategy for audience growth and increased revenue. Less than 2 years later, Jourdan has generated multiple six figures in business and has grown her Instagram audience to 75,000 plus amazing humans. Her true passion is helping women showcase their true authentic selves through their content to make more money online. And without further ado, let's get this conversation going. Hey, Jourdan, how are you?
Fantastic. How are you? You look beautiful.
Thank you. So glad to be able to have you today and have this conversation.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be in this space, and just thank you for just creating the space for us to speak and share our stories.
Absolutely. You always look so refreshed and like bright, even on your Instagram. I'm like, good skin.
It's the Lord's light. I'm telling you. It's the sun coming through. That's it.
Awesome. So I did a little bit of research because I wanted to know a little bit more about you. And so I wanted to start off with you kind of just telling us your story and your journey, because I know that you were in media prior to kind of stepping into this entrepreneurial online business space. And so I know that your website said that started with the pandemic and that kind of like switched things for you. Yeah. And I think that's pretty relatable for a lot of people. So tell us a little bit about your background and kind of your journey to, where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my journey in media straight out of college in 2010. I went to University of Oklahoma, Boomer Sooner. And outside of college, I got what I thought was my dream job. And I started working at the Maury Show. So all your DNA drama, like baby mama, you were not the father, like that was literally my first taste of media right out of college. And I enjoyed every minute of it. I enjoyed just being a production assistant and then associate producer. And I was there for almost 3 years there. And I really started to get the itch to be in front of the camera. And I was living in Stamford, Connecticut, not too far away from New York at the time. And so I decided to leave that job and take a work from home marketing job. And ever since I was young, I was always working multiple jobs. So when I was working at Maury, I was doing like brand ambassador stuff and doing wine tasting. So then I started working as like corporate as an employee at that company. So I was able to work from home. I was learning marketing. I was learning the liquor and beer industry. And I was going to auditions. Like I was hustling. I was doing everything. And just in networking and my connections at working at Maury and just being personable, I got into casting. And so I started casting for OWN and BET and HGTV and just finding talent. So that became another muscle and skill for me of just pulling just beauty and personality out of people. And so that was great. And then in 2019, I co-created a web series with a friend of mine, a comedic one, and we sold it to a major network. And it was like, I was on cloud nine because I was actually creating content. I was starring in the content. I was producing the content, and it was all original. And it was so much fun. And we were excited to get into season 2, and then the pandemic hit. So everything stopped for us. Everything stopped for everyone, right?
Yeah.
So production stopped, casting stopped, auditions stopped, and I was collecting unemployment. And just being someone who has been working since I was 14 years old, I was like, there has to be another way. Like there has to, and that's kind of when entrepreneurship fell into my lap. So it snowballed from there.
So how was that? Like, I know being in media and doing production, that's more like behind the scenes. So like stepping from behind the scenes and kind of having a comfort zone there, and then stepping in front and having that influence. How did media and influence begin to collide for you? And how was that transition?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, media and influence is a beautiful combination when you lean into your authenticity, right? And so for a long time before I became in front of the camera, when I was at Maury, I was a little heavier. I was overweight. I was incompetent. I was still just really getting to know myself. I was in my early 20s. I'm 33 now. And I think that I had to transition into not just loving myself more, but liking myself and liking who I am and who I was becoming and knowing what I wanted to be before letting the influence of outside what I was supposed to be, right? And I think that takes time. And I think that once I started to lean into that and embrace that and own that, and again, going back to liking and loving that, I think that's when the media and influence started to feel like a happy marriage for me.
I love that you say that you really had to step into a place of liking yourself. And I know that you work with other influencers and those that kind of create content online. So how do you encourage others? Because I know that I'm sure that with a lot that you do, you are encouraging them to do like reels and like going live and different things of that nature, planning content. How do you encourage them based on your own journey to step into a place of more of a like of self and not just flowing through life?
That's a great question. So the majority of the women that I work with are female coaches and service providers. And so a lot of them need to be front facing on camera, talking about their methods, talking about their frameworks, all of those things.
Yeah.
I think that diving in or tapping into liking yourself, is an inside job, 100%. But also I think there's something that's so beautiful that happens when you're surrounded in community. And so what I try to do in my group coaching program, we have a community for my students. And so I saw that as helpful for me, where I could be in a space, be myself, have my authentic essence caught by other people that support me. So when then I go in front of an audience that I barely even know or getting to curate or getting to build a relationship with, I already have that like confidence that I built in community. And so when I get in front of people that I barely know, and if it flops or it doesn't do well, I'm not as hard on myself because I know my girls back there and my little community back there, they like it. Like they already know, I already tried it. I already got together, right? So I think that's a huge part in just authenticity and entrepreneurship and being a woman and being a Black woman. Like all of that is so heavy. And if you don't have people to go through that with you, it's very lonely and very isolating.
I love that you kind of pivoted there, because one of the things that I know for sure is like those that are online, those that are more front facing, and just like women in business in general, there can be a lack of community there. There can be a lack of support. There can be a lack of accountability. There just could be a lack of, just those people you need to push you and to really encourage you. So, for those that do have the community, how do you deal with the stress of being an influencer? How do you deal with the stress of being front facing and being a content creator and doing this, not just once, but often, because it's your career field?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. I'm like itching. I'm like, oh, this is such a good question. It's so hard, right? Because I did not start this business to become an influencer. Like that was not my, it was, first of all, I always said, oh, I'm not going to be a coach. Now I'm a coach, right? And then this audience that came out of the Lord and just hard work, I never saw this being the trajectory, right? And it's crazy to say because I was going on auditions and auditioning for big shows and wanting to be on TV and all those things. But I think when it finally hits and it comes from a place of just being yourself and not playing a character, I think that it becomes not way more. It can be exhausting. And I try to tell my husband, like, we just moved to LA. And so obviously he's like, we need to meet people. We need to meet community. We need to get out there. He has friends here. And what I have to keep telling him is Monday through Thursday, babe, I'm on. Like, I'm talking to people. I'm on Instagram Live. I'm doing reels. I'm talking to my clients. Like, when Friday, Saturday, and Sunday come around,
it's a wrap.
You and myself. Like, that's it. Like, that's literally it. Like, I don't want to DMs. I don't want to, like, literally, I don't want to do anything else. So I think that I've been trying to find the balance because I love my audience. I'm obsessed. I can't believe they support me. I can't believe they show up. I can't believe they set their own. Like, it's insane to me. I love them so much. And so I feel called to show up for them. I feel called to pour into them. I feel called to serve them. And I think that the thing that we have to realize as faces of our brand or influencers or whatever we want to call ourselves, thought leaders, is that you can't pour from an empty cup, and that it's okay to step away. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to be off social. The people that are called to you will still be there when you are ready. And I just think that message is so important to get across.
Yeah, that's good. You talked a little bit about authenticity and how important it is not to play this character when you're online. And I think that that's absolutely pivotal when it comes to making sure that you don't cross over into a reality that's not real in a sense. But how do you think that people that follow you, your community, your audience, how do they misinterpret your life just based on what you may post on social media or some things they may assume that may not necessarily be true?
Raven, these are good questions.
I get that all the time.
I mean, again, like, by the grace of God, like, I have a beautiful, curated, most majority of them are women. When I started my business, I had 6,000 followers. They were 74% men. So it was a lot of ayo ma, like, what's good? Like, it was a lot of that. What I've built now is 84% women, nearly 80,000 people on my platform. And it was a space that I've curated and intentionally built. So I think for the most part, my community is super, super supportive. And like, there's people that send me DMs that they're praying for me and like, they can't wait for things to like, it's amazing. But I think that the way that I show up has been very strategic. There's not a lot about like my life that you know about. Like, you know that I'm married, you know that I live in LA, but like, there's so much of my life that I don't show intentionally. And I think that's really beautiful because it's just something that I can keep to myself and to my family and to my husband. What I do think is misinterpreted, or just maybe not, but I did it too, is that people look at where I'm at and I'm almost 2 years into my business. And it was like, you just woke up and it was just there. Or you just, or you're just rich. And like, it's just like, it's those two things. It's like, oh, you have all this money and you're a gajillionaire and you're living, and no, ma'am. Right? Or like, you don't work hard, you just wake up and all these sales come to you. They don't know that this was me sending personal freaking videos with people's names on a piece of paper to every single person that clicked a link. They don't know that I was going to find people's Instagram by going through their email and then going to contact them and build a connection with them. Like, they don't understand like the hard, gritty, you gotta do it kind of work that's gotten me here, plus the 10 years of being in TV. And I think that it's just really easy to see like, oh, multi-6-figure business. She just, it's kind of like,
nothing happens overnight.
Cry. I'm not doing this anymore. Are we about to be bankrupt? Like, just stuff that like, I don't think that that people really think too much about. So
Yeah.
I think that is it's ghetto sometimes. And
Yeah, that's the truth. Yeah, business in itself, it's gritty. It really takes a lot of grit to be able to continue in this line of work. And so you do have a very supportive community and those that you've been able to really connect with. But do you ever run into judgment, criticism? And then how do you handle that if you do?
not really. I mean, my brand and my business is pretty, the thread is kindness, right? And
Hmm.
our goals and our values are to make sure people feel seen and heard at all
Yeah.
times. So I don't really get much of that. I really don't. And if I do, I have no problem hopping on a Zoom or having a conversation or sending a voice note. And I also have no problem blocking you. Like if I don't know who you or if it's like not that serious to me, like
Yeah.
it's I'm not like I just before like when I first started my business, and my skin is not as tough as I imagine it will be in a year from now or 5 years from now. But the little things used to get to me. Now
Mhm.
it's more so like when my clients or my students feel some type of way, maybe they might not feel supported or they may need something or they're confused. That gets me.
Yeah.
Um, but more so outside world, I can't. Like I don't have it. I don't have it.
Well, that's good because I've heard like mixed things from just different people I've interviewed based on like, if you have these huge YouTube followings, a lot of times there's a lot more criticism that comes with that than like an IG following. So I love to hear that. So what's been your secret sauce when it comes to really the way that you've kind of painted the picture of authenticity and just connecting with your community and really building this community that's more built on kindness and just kind of connection rather than so much judgment and criticism? What's been your secret sauce in that way?
I think it goes back to just making people feel seen and heard, right? Like I still respond to all of my DMs, even
Mm.
if I'm sitting and doing a pedicure and I'm sitting there for an hour, like I'm going through DMs. I think that over the years, it's not been that long, but over the last few months, I've been very intentional about who I work with and being transparent and honest. I think when you start your business, you're still figuring out who you want to work with. So you're basically working with everyone. You're
Yeah.
like, I'll take this. I want this. Okay, you
Mhm.
want this? Oh, you good? Okay, you do legal. Okay, you good? You do, like you
Yep.
just like you take everything, and
Yep.
then you try to figure out what you want, what you like, what lights you up. And I think now I'm in a space of like keeping the essentials, like
Mhm.
just taking away what we don't need, keeping what we do need, and again, just pouring into those people that I'm supposed to be serving, nothing more, nothing less, and just seeing them, even if they
Mhm.
don't spend money with you. That's
Mhm.
another thing. Like
Yeah.
we get so I don't know. I think now the online space, since everyone's really building and starting businesses
Yeah.
and it's gotten so busy and noisy, I think that I'm starting to hear in this industry that like people aren't feeling like people anymore, right? Like
Mhm.
they don't
Mhm.
have access to people, they can't talk to them. There's a disconnect. And
Yeah.
so as exhausting as it can be sometimes, I think that you have to. If people are spending money, some people are spending like money they don't even have, right,
Yeah.
to do these programs. So it's like you have to leave people better than the way that you found them at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's a amazing just perspective to have because I think, like you said, with this online space, people are just kind of becoming numbers. Like, can I kind of
Mhm.
check you off and like figure out, am I going to meet my goal or whatnot, but not necessarily tending to the needs of people with your programs and services and making people feel like you are intentional about what you're doing.
Right, I
So
agree.
when it comes to boundaries for you and just like the online space and showing up online and your personal life and being married and all these different roles that you have, what does that look like? How do you set them and do you set them and how do you work through that?
Jesus,
The Lord.
the Lord. But seriously, he be having to set some boundaries for me when I don't set them myself. That does
Yeah.
happen. I am checked. But I think I've recently been getting a bit more proactive about setting boundaries ahead of time. But I
Mhm.
think prior to, because in business you don't know anything. If you don't know how to start a business, you don't know anything, right? So
Yeah.
things have to happen first in order for you then to set a boundary, right? There's
Right.
a lot of
Right.
things that I've learned along the way that I would have never ever thought of. But then I face being burnt out, or then I face someone saying I'm not happy, or I
Mhm.
face someone saying I need to hop on a call right now, and it's just like oh, I didn't know people could do that. Oh, I don't, like, you know, you have those
Yeah.
moments. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to take a step back and say, you know, how are we doing? Like, you look at it in a way of how do we, because it could happen again. We can't prevent it from happening, but how do we protect ourselves from this outcome moving forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And putting that boundary in place, and then also following through with that boundary.
Yeah.
Boundaries only work if we enforce them. And I've seen that happen sometimes too, where I say, okay, no Fridays, I'm not working. And then I'm like, okay, let's shoot one more
Just a
thing.
little bit.
Why? You know, so,
Right.
you know, I don't want that creeping in. It happens, but I'm trying to set them before I have to, for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I love that. So do you feel like when it comes to you and your business, I know that you talk about your faith and different things of that nature. How do you include that when it comes to the stress, when it comes to showing up, when it comes to the capacity and really moving in business and being this woman that's a thought leader and an influencer? How do you include that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not for me, it's not inclusion, right? I think it's more of like it's more foundational, right? Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
think it's something that's in it. I think it's the base of everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, some of the things that I think about, like before I go on live or before I do a live coaching call with my students, I always ask God to give me the words when he calls me. Give me the words when he calls me. Like I say that over
Yeah.
and over and over again. Because at the end of the day, like my content is not like biblical or scriptures, or it's
Yeah.
not like God facing,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that people see God's light through me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I want to continue to do. And that's what I want to continue to showcase. And
Yeah.
so whatever that looks like, if it looks like kindness, if it looks like helping, if it looks like serving, if it looks like gentle dragging and calling people out, you know, that's what I'm going to do. And I think that it's also really important for me as I grow and as I'm surrounded by other thought leaders to go to him and make sure my desires that I think I want are aligned with his and not
Yeah.
aligned with the industry or with influencers or with thought leaders, with all the
Mm-hmm.
goals that they have, right? It's like, what are the goals you have for me? How do you want me to show you through me, and just use me as a vessel?
Yeah, I love that. Standing in your own unique rhythm,
Yeah,
I think that that's so important. So
absolutely.
this brings me to my last question, which I ask all of my guests on this series. So to you and your perspective and just, your lifestyle and what you've seen in business and with your platform, what is the cost of relevancy and influence?
What is the cost of relevancy and influence? The cost of relevancy and influence. Hmm.
It's a deep one, I know.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, like, what I think the cost is. I think the cost is just vulnerability,
Hmm.
right? Like and vulnerability is beautiful. It helps someone. It brings them through their breakthrough. But sometimes, like, you don't want to be, or sometimes, like,
Yeah.
you have to be the one who is talking about things that people aren't talking about, right? You
Yeah.
have to be the one who's not sugar. You have to be convicted in the way that you show up, um,
Yeah.
in order to stand out, but also serve people.
Hmm.
And I think that a lot of us in this space, I guess I'll just speak for myself. I guess I want to do a better job at being more transparent of the valleys and not just the peaks, right?
Hmm.
I think the cost of relevancy and influence is trying to decipher what you're going to show, right?
Yeah.
Trying to teeter totter on the balance of, is this too much or is this enough, right? You get to a point where you kind of second guess what you're posting, right? In the
Yeah.
beginning, you're a little like, okay, I'm here. Okay, this is what I'm going to talk about. Oh, do I speak on this? Oh, this is political. Oh, this is racial. Like, it's a whole
Yeah.
thing. You have to think way deeper, especially in this cancel culture.
Yeah.
So I think that's the cost. There's a little less freedom per se, unless you go on TikTok, which I'm learning. And there is a space for vulnerability, but there's a chance that it won't be received the way that you intend it to be.
Love that. I couldn't agree with you more. That transparency and vulnerability portion of what to show and what not to show is hard. It's very difficult to know what that line is. And I think that a lot of people in general who are front facing struggle in that area to share or to overshare or not share.
Right.
It's a crazy balance there. But thank you so much, Jourdan, for joining me today.
This is awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And your questions are freaking good. So
I've heard that. This episode of The Raven Knowles Show is sponsored by the Mindset to Momentum Mastermind, which is now open for enrollment. The Mindset to Momentum Mastermind is an easier, holistic way to execute your goals while better managing your mindset and retraining your brain to help you work healthily toward your next level of success. It is the only mastermind program with a hybrid coaching model involving group and in-person training that combine the power of mindset work and mental and emotional health strategies to help you keep the momentum going in your life and business. Learn to maximize the momentum you need to successfully boss your brand and business without caving under the demands and pressures of all your responsibilities. Check out the link in the show notes to learn more. This has been The Raven Knowles Show. Thanks for listening. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to this podcast so you're the first to know when new episodes are released. And don't forget to leave a review. If you can't wait until the next show, follow along on Instagram, YouTube, or Twitter at RavenCKnoll for more tips and to keep the conversation going. Go ahead and DM me on Instagram or take a screenshot of this podcast and share it to your IG stories. I want to know about your takeaways from the show. Don't forget to tag me and use the hashtag RCNPodSquad. Lastly, visit my website at ravencknoll.com and join my email list to get exclusive bonuses only for my email subscribers. Thanks again for rocking and rolling with me. I'll talk to you soon.